It's 2 degrees in the depths of British winter and I'm freezing my arse off outside here in South London. But behind me, it's nice and warm inside this newly retrofitted property. Our client came to us wanting a rear extension and some works up at the loft, but they also chose to retrofit their property with new insulation and new mechanical services to try to lower their annual energy bills. Initially, it had an EPC rating of D, which isn't fantastic, and it was very poorly insulated with high energy bills. So let's take a look around to see what retrofitting has done to increase the energy performance of the building. Stick around till the very end to find out how much it's actually improved. So up here on the dormer roof, we've got a new array of solar panels. Now obviously everyone's quite familiar with solar panels nowadays, but what people probably don't realise is how far the technology's come in such a short space of time. Solar panels nowadays have their own micro inverters. Each panel has a micro inverter as opposed to all the panels being served by a central inverter, which was how the technology used to work. So what that means is that if there's ever any shade on one particular panel, let's say from cloud cover or tree cover, or from pigeons droppings, it doesn't affect the total efficiency of all the rest of the panels on that roofscape. So what that means is throughout the year, even on a cold, cloudy day like this, all of the solar panels can still be generating energy, and that can feed into a battery, as this client's chosen to do here with their solar panel array. So I guess you could say that these panels are bird-proof for performance, although it would be nice if those flying rats didn't use them as their public toilet so often. So right next to me, we've got an air source heat pump, and what this is, it's essentially like a refrigerator working in reverse, moving heat from a cold place into a warm one. Now, the way an air source heat pump works, it basically extracts heat from the outside air and transfers it indoors. Now, that's a little hard to believe on a cold day like this. It uses a refrigerant fluid that circulates through a closed system, first absorbing the heat from the outside air in what's called an evaporator, then being compressed to raise its temperature further. The heat now gained by the refrigerant can then be transferred through a condenser to be supplied to the home's hot water supply, or even in an air-to-air system to provide heat inside of the home. The refrigerant itself, thereafter, can be expanded back to a low pressure and a low temperature to actually restart the cycle. So what that means is that air source heat pumps themselves can be anywhere between 200 to 400% more efficient than a conventional boiler system. So a lot of homeowners have taken advantage of the UK government's BUS grant, that's the Boiler Upgrade Scheme, that allows you access to a fund of £7,500 off the cost of an air source heat pump and its installation. You can also get a 0% VAT allowance on all parts, materials and installation labour costs of a heat pump system. So that could include your water tanks, your smart controls, your underfloor heating system and all of your replacement radiators should you require them. So the best way to maximise the efficiency of this system is to first of all make sure you have one installed by an MCS installer who knows what they're doing and they're knowledgeable about this sort of system. Our own CEO unfortunately lived to tell the tale of what a bad heat pump install can be like in this video here. Believe me, she was flipping furious. So let's head on into the property to see how the heat that's delivered from this system is controlled and manipulated once it's delivered into the house. So we're now inside the property. It's lovely and warm in here. Once you've got the heat pump installed, it's all about running it sensibly. You want to be allowing it to run at a low heat flow temperature, which will give you a consistent level of heat throughout the property. Ideally, the smart control should be fitted with weather compensation, so you're not wasting lots of energy by turning radiators on and off to meet your demand temperature inside the house when the weather outside the property changes. So this is sort of the engine under the hood of the air source heat pump system. Once we've got all of the heat from outside and brought it into the property, it's here where it's manipulated and delivered to the property where we need it to provide spatial comfort. Having that weather compensation is really important because it's basically like a really clever thermostat that'll actually check the weather before deciding how hard it wants to work, unlike that one colleague in your office who wears shorts all year round. Of course, any new heating system's efficiency is greatly affected by how quickly heat can be lost from the building, which is why fabric improvements go a long way to getting the best out of your heating system. So at Resi, we start with a fabric first assessment of your property. We look for where the envelope of the building, that's the walls, the floors, the roof and the openings, can be improved upon, resheathed with insulation or completely replaced in order to keep the heat within your home from leaking outside. We also look to improve the air tightness and minimise air movement and cold bridges around where all of these elements of the building join and junction together. When it comes to walls, you can retrofit insulation either internally or externally. But what if you have a beautiful or protected architectural facade that you don't want to cover up? Well, you can insulate internally, as this client's done here on this particular wall behind me. When you insulate internally, special attention must be given to this, as it will in turn leave the existing walls behind the insulation a lot colder than they were before, and that can cause some moisture issues that we need to think about. And whenever you re-insulate any elements in the home, we need to think about whether it's vapor closed construction, whereby no airborne moisture can pass through it whatsoever, or if it's intended to be a vapor open construction where airborne moisture can actually move through the build-up gradually. This requires key detailing by your retrofit technical designer to specify the right materials and build-ups to prevent moisture from becoming trapped within the wall, which can cause damps, molds, and actually can cause harmful spores that are bad for one's health inside the home. So this client wanted to protect the beautiful brick facade that we can see here whilst also insulating the wall. So they opted for internal wall insulation. Now, depending on how much internal space you want to have remaining once you've sheathed the inside of the wall, you can tailor how much insulation you want to add and what materials you want to go for in order to get a balance of thermal improvement whilst retaining as much space inside the property as you can. Our client wanted to keep as much floor space as possible whilst using a thin and breathable product, so we went with cork cell, which is a natural product that offers good thermal performance with a very thin overall build-up and crucially is vapor open. So whole house retrofitting of your home, if it's done properly, will greatly reduce its overall carbon emissions and energy bills whilst creating a more comfortable, valuable and climate resilient home that's better equipped to handle extreme weather conditions and rising fuel prices. So when planning an extension project, it makes perfect sense to incorporate retrofit measures simultaneously. The walls are open, contractors are going to be on site, and scaffolding could be up, which can significantly reduce the overall costs compared to doing these works separately. So addressing the whole house's energy efficiency during an extension project ensures the new space works harmoniously with the existing structure, and that's why it makes sense to retrofit as you renovate. Now that our client has made all of these fabric and mechanical upgrades to their property, we estimate that its final APC grade has increased from D to B grade. Though our clients only completed their project and moved in a few months ago, they're already saving hundreds of pounds on their winter energy bills and are on track to save over £1,000 on their annual bill. This is on the basis of current energy prices, and given how volatile they can be, they'll effectively be saving more and more on their energy bills as time goes on. It's also worth noting that thanks to our glorious British weather, his solar panels haven't had the opportunity to really become the star of the show in summertime. The energy they can bank into the battery power will again reduce the reliance on the mains electricity supply and further reduce the total cost of running the house.